So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Very delighted to have you join us today to talk about the VMware to Nutanix migration. Also, would like to take this opportunity to welcome our friends from Nutanix who are joining us to co-present this webinar today. They'll be joining us and taking part in the presentations. Just a piece of housekeeping. If you have questions, this isn't supposed to be an interactive session. So we'd like to obviously make sure we respond to you. There's a Q&A tab on the right-hand side of the screen. Please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A tab, and as a team, we'll do our best to respond to you and answer those questions as we go along. So without further ado, let me pass you over to the first speaker, who's Arne Bastler.
Thank you, Justin. So let's start because I want to give more room to Chris, that will be our senior consultant that will talk about how to migrate from VMware to Nutanix. Myself, Arnaud Bassaler, I'm based in Paris, a part of EMEA team within Cisco, covering UCS topic and everything that is around compute. And I just want to pitch a very short introduction on why Nutanix on top of UCS, and what do we bring together on the table, and what are the benefits of using Nutanix software on top of UCS hardware. So this is again about the partnership that we are doing around the strategy, about the go-to-market, the solutions, and the support. So it's not only something to say just, okay, we are supporting Nutanix software on top of UCS hardware, and that's all. No, it's much more than that. Again, it's around a strong partnership and how to integrate our software. That is all about how to deploy and ease the deployment of the cluster and the management of the cluster, with all the benefit by using hyperconverged infrastructure by Nutanix. And that is all that we are going to provide. So it's all about the simplicity, all the value around the UCS. Our unified computing system is around how to bring a global visibility and unified experience with our systems, whether you are using the right mount form factor, which are called the C series within a Cisco portfolio, or our chassis-based infrastructure, which is quite new. We now support Nutanix on top of chassis-based infrastructure, so blades. That is quite new on the market because we have the right scalability from a storage standpoint in order to do so, and that is quite new, in order to provide the flexibility and the end of the day the right resiliency that are needed. And that value match exactly what Nutanix is able to provide. So Nutanix is simple to use, is flexible enough regarding what kind of hypervisor you want to use, the scalability, and how many nodes can be supported within your cluster, and the storage, and all the security layers that they can provide within their software. So that is exactly a good fit between what we are able to provide from an infrastructure point of view, and how to easily deploy, manage, monitor our cluster with what Nutanix is able to provide on the hand. And finally, yes, we are doing a lot of development and co-development that are unique to Cisco when it comes to, again, how to deploy and to use a workflow in order to deploy a cluster from scratch, and easily configure not only the compute side, but also the network connectivity, which is quite something that is quite unique to Cisco design with our concept of UCS and our fabric, and I will not cover that too deep. So in order to easily deploy multiple clusters at the same time, with security in mind, with security connection that will be secured between the physical devices and the Prism Central vault that will be used in order to secure all communication, and in order to be able to manage the cluster, not only from a software point of view, what Nutanix is able to provide, but also from a physical infrastructure. Be aware of all the firmware deployment that you need to deploy within your physical infrastructure. Be aware of all the security breaches that has been that has been proposed by Cisco as a CVE, and how to easily correct those breaches and be able to check the HCL hardware compatibility list and so on. That is all the benefit that you are getting when you are using UCS, Unified Computing System, plus Nutanix software in order to manage your hyper-converged infrastructure. So it's a matter of choice at the end of the day. And yes, you have plenty of choice on how can you deploy your favorite or HCI flavor, whether we are talking about edge deployment or data center deployment, with rack mount, with more or less storage, depending on what you need. If you prefer to use a chassis-based infrastructure because it's more sustainable with power consumption that has been enhanced and optimized on those form factors, that is also doable with different kind of capacity, with a choice of hypervisor, with a choice of kind of nodes with or without compute, different kind of networking option depending on what do you prefer to use within your data center. Again, it's a matter of choice end of the day. And with UCS, Cisco UCS plus Nutanix, it's exactly what we are able to provide. So we are providing a broad range of different options depending on what you want to deploy, and a global support. So that means that you will get a single deck in order to be supported, whether you are facing issues on hardware side or software side. Cisco will be your single point of contact in order to support the whole infrastructure and your whole hyper-converged cluster. Whatever can happen, we will be able to support you and provide the right support. And again, that is a key part of our partnership with Nutanix. So finally, with all of that, that is exactly what we are able to deliver: a real simple and easy to buy, easy to use system, easy to deploy, with a complete flexibility when it comes to what kind of choice and what kind of flavor can I use, depending on my objectives and what I need to deploy from a workload point of view on top of that hyperconverged infrastructure, with resiliency and security in mind. That is exactly what Cisco and Nutanix partnership is about. And this is why we are really happy within Cisco to have that stronger partnership with Nutanix. But now the most common question that we have from all of you that are listening to that is, how do I move from the left side on the slide to the right side of the slide? And that is exactly what Chris is going to talk about. So please, Chris, I hand it over to you.
Sure, no problem. All right, let me share. Okay. Right. Excellent. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks for inviting me. I'm going to talk today about Nutanix Move, in the tradition of Nutanix naming their products after kind of their functionality. Move moves VMs into Nutanix. So a quick introduction. Here's me. It's a scary slide with my face on it, but yeah, I'm a senior technical consultant with Nutanix UK. I've been with Nutanix just over 18 months. Prior to that, I had lots and lots of experience with Cisco kit in and out of the data centers for a previous employer. Yeah, lots of hardware experience, lots of networking, lots of VMware. Yeah, absolutely, lots and lots and lots. So today we're going to talk about migration challenges, and we'll find out all about Nutanix Move, the product itself. Nutanix Move not only can move VMs, it will also move some files, your file shares for you. We'll have a quick look at that. We'll also talk about considerations when you're using Move and best practices. It's always good to have a look at the best practices. And we'll finish off with some more resources and some links and things that we can make available to you guys. So kicking off migration challenges. What are our migration challenges? Yeah, migrating can be complex. I mean, anybody that's been in and around data centers, IT infrastructure for any sort of time will recognize a lot of these. Yeah, licensing considerations, transformation complexity, that's what it's all about. And for me, the two biggest ones there are disruption and downtime. How can we minimize disruption? How can we minimize downtime? Yeah, and how can we also, whilst we're migrating, potentially modernize our applications at the same time. So if we look at the 7 R's of cloud migrations, working our way up from the bottom left, obviously the cheapest thing to do is to retain, do nothing, keep everything the same way as it's always been. Excellent, job done. That's the cheapest option. Second to that, retire. Yep, so that old application that's sitting in the corner there, nobody's used it for years and years. Let's retire it off. Rehost, which is pretty much where Move begins to get involved. It's simplest and fastest strategy. Literally P2V or V2V, show me age there, P2V VMs into a new environment, little or no changes to those VMs themselves. Replatform. Yeah, simple. Again, move the VMs into our new environment, but perhaps we'll look at maybe reducing memory, increasing disk space, optimizing in our layout. Maybe we've got a database server we want to move. Maybe we want to look at mount points and all of that good stuff. Another good one for replatform would be sort of Active Directory servers. Yeah, we're going to build our brand new AD servers up on our Nutanix environment. Just move the FSMO roles and away we go. It's easy as that. Refactor and re-architect. Yeah, so we're going to replace potentially we're going to replace all our on-prem VMs with something a little bit more modern. Maybe we'll go, for example, cloud native VMs, something like that. Maybe we'll rebuild with Nutanix native VMs. Refactor and re-architect. Yep, covered that one. Rebuild. Yeah, let's literally maybe drop and shop. That one's drop and shop would be an alternative for that. So yeah, maybe we're going for a platform as a service or software as a service, something like that. And finally, the most expensive will be to replace. So for example, like a complete application change. Maybe we're going to get rid of all of those old database servers we've got running, and we'll go on to this whizzy brand new database software that everybody's going to move into. Common migration methodology, be that moving to Nutanix, be that moving anywhere really. Step one, let's have a look at our legacy current environment. Let's engage our stakeholders. A very particular stakeholder that you need to engage from this point of view would be, if you like, your application expert, your subject matter expert on your application. Those guys know their apps throughout. They're using them all day, every day. Let's have a look at their requirements. Let's create the project design. Let's document some test plans, and potentially a good thing to do is run through those test plans in the VMware environment as they are today. So for example, let's performance test the application as it is today. Let's get the baseline understood, because after we've done all of this work, we can then run that baseline again and compare the two, and hopefully we won't get I'm sure we've all had it, that application was running perfect until you, the IT department or whoever, did something to it, and now it doesn't run as well. If you've got those hard numbers at the beginning to say, yeah, the application was running like this, and we can prove by rerunning exactly the same test afterwards that things are running a lot better, away we go. In the middle there, so depending on whether we're going to we've chosen our option from our previous slide, whether we're going to go infrastructure centric, so we're going to pick up our VMs that make up our application, maybe our 3-tier app. We're going to move all of those VMs at once. We'll come up to the top there, and we'll run our migrations as an infrastructure centric migration. Perhaps we'll run them as an application migration. Come down to the bottom there. Basically, the tools are the same. We need to have a look at our automated tools, which again, Nutanix Move can help us with, whether we're going to rebuild or re-architect the application. We'll take it from there. And finally, as I was saying earlier, the validation, user acceptance testing, load testing is always a good one. Final tuning, because potentially there may be some final tuning to do with the application once it's onto Nutanix. And then final, no go or go. Hopefully everything's go. So let's talk about Move and where it can fit into that process. Some key features on Move. It's free for Nutanix customers. It's fully supported by the Nutanix support environments as SREs. It can be deployed either via Prism Central Marketplace, or we can download the appliance and deploy direct. Mostly we suggest deploying the appliance to our target environment. So that would be our Nutanix environment. It's dead easy to use, and we'll go through the GUI in a little bit later. We support a wide range of client or guest OSs with the Move appliance. Again, we can get into some of those in a little bit. In terms of support for other hypervisors, obviously we support coming from vSphere, Hyper-V. We also support migrations to and from AWS and Azure. Yeah, we'll get into that in a sec. The Move application itself is clientless, or sorry, agentless. Unless we're doing some Hyper-V migrations, then we'll need to put a little tiny agent on the Hyper-V host. Not a problem. Near zero downtime for our client VMs or our user VMs. We'll have a look at that in a little bit. Retain or adapt our network configs. So potentially we may want to, if we're moving, not only if we're moving, say, from an on-prem data center to a cloud instance, there may be IP changes involved in that. Yep, Move can help us with that. Absolutely not a problem. We can also throttle our bandwidth coming from Move. Obviously, if you've got migrations going on during the day, that may conflict with any business that's going on. One of the big things that that Move will do, it'll insert your AHV IO drivers. So that'll be your, your network card driver, your SCSI driver, your equivalent to PV SCSI, equivalent to VMX Net3, or your VirtIO is in Nutanix. Those drivers will get installed as part of the migration. And finally, we can do NFS and SIFS migrations or SMB migrations straight into Nutanix, the Nutanix Files product. So as I said before, multi-cloud mobility with Move. Yeah, we can come straight in from our 3-tier ESXi or Hyper-V environment. We can import or export to AWS instances, Azure native instances. We can also migrate into Nutanix Cloud, so traditionally known as NC2, on public clouds, or we could have traditional on-prem Nutanix private cloud. If we skin that cat slightly differently, we can see that Move will allow us to create individual or multiple migrations per plan. So maybe we want to just do a couple of VMs, maybe we want to do 100 VMs per migration plan. Absolutely not a problem. Got a one-click migration cutover, which we'll see in a bit. Yeah, as I say, the flexible source infrastructure, not a problem. One-click migrations, yeah, we can do migrations via the UI that's in the Move appliance. It's got a nice web front end, dead easy to use, or we can API it, use something like Ansible, etc. to migrate. One thing of note, very much like, probably showing my age here, the VMware P2V product, there is no refactoring of the VMs as they come across, no re-architecting. We're literally picking up a VM and rehosting it into Nutanix. Within the migration planning, we can map our source and target networks. Obviously, as I said before, we can change IPs on the way through, or retain IPs, entirely whatever we need to do within the plan. And to minimize the downtime, the way the appliance or the way the product works is we create our migration plan. We then say, right, okay, we want to seed that data. So across to our Nutanix environment. So what does that actually mean, seeding data? The way I think of it is very much like a backup. So we're all familiar with something like a Rubrik backup, a Cohesity backup, Commvault backup, etc. We're taking a snapshot of our base VM or vSphere VM, and we're copying over that snapshot and using that as a restore point. We're then, once we've got that, it's change block tracking. We're then copying blocks across, change blocks across, and that's exactly what the move appliance is doing. It's can be thought of, I like to think of it as maybe another backup we've got going. Instead of exporting a VM to a backup appliance, we're just exporting it to our Nutanix environment. And when we're done, we click the button to cut over, and away we go. And that cut over itself is very quick. We can get into, we'll show you the, I'll show you the cut over in a bit. Absolutely simple. It's simple, and because we've got all of our data pre-seeded in our new environment, that cutover is less than 5 minutes. Move our adoption. Whereas we've got this is a fairly old slide, thousands of customers. It's probably more like tens of thousands of customers now, and certainly a lot more VM migrations that have been completed using Move. Lots and lots of those, funnily enough, are coming out of VMware. Can't think why. It's been 7 years since Move has been launched, and it's updated several times a year with even more and more features. In terms of guest OSs, we've got, you can see it there. Anything up to Server 2025 is now supported in the later versions. All the way down to 2008 R2, there is still some of it out there. Lots of Linux flavors. Plenty of support. And if we look at the guides, there's even more there that we can dig through. In terms of move capabilities, sure, we can move from ESXi to AHV, Nutanix's hypervisor, either on-prem or NC2 on Azure, or NC2 on AWS. We can also use the same tool to come from Hyper-V, AWS, etc., as you can see there. One thing to note, it's the same appliance for whatever migration you're doing. You can have a migration, an appliance set up, configure your source environment. Maybe you're having a vSphere source environment, maybe you've got an AWS source environment. Same appliance can handle both, no problem. So, how do I configure Move to move my VMs? Dead easy. On the left here, set up my environment. So I've got my Nutanix environment. I've got my target environment, my vSphere environment. Within the tool, I create my migration plan. I select my source. So in this case, it'll be my vSphere. I set the target. I'm going to Nutanix. Absolutely no problem. From there, I can select my VMs. So in this migration plan, I'm moving my 2022 server. As part of that migration plan, I'm not moving any others. I can move up to 100 if I wanted per migration plan. I'm just going to do the one here. Network configs. So I want to map my source config. So that will be my source network, my port group, vSphere port group, to my Nutanix subnet. Again, I'm going green to green here. Absolutely no problem. Test network. So what I can do with the Nutanix Move appliance is I can run a test. So what a test would involve would be taking a snapshot or the latest snapshot of your source VM, your vSphere VM, leaving that VM running. That VM stays running. What we'll do is we'll then use that captured data, that seeded data, and spin up a Nutanix VM on a private test network. So suggest a non-rooted network there. So maybe you've got an application like a 3-tier app. Let's test that it will actually migrate and the VMs will spin up, and we haven't got half a ton of services that won't start. Run a test, let it spin up, confirm everything looks okay, shut it down, clean up the test instances, and away we go. That's quite a good feature, that one. I'm to use that one quite a bit. So VM prep, how can I configure my VMs, whether I want to prep automatically? So that's injecting the VirtIO SCSI drivers, the network card drivers into the VM. Again, the Move appliance can do all of that for us on the way through. Or maybe we want to do, instead of an automatic mode up here, we could say manual. Then what that will cause the Move appliance to do is it will create us a little lump of PowerShell for a Windows VM. allow us to install our IO drivers that way. Again, for Linux VMs, it will create a bash script that we can run manually in our VMs and confirm that, yep, those IO drivers are all loaded and everybody's happy. Into the networking, yeah, so we can retain our static IPs. We can maybe go DHCP, or we can go individually configure IPs on the way through. As I say, maybe we're swapping networks. Maybe we're going up to the cloud, something like that. We can choose to install Nutanix guest tools. So we're all familiar with VMware guest tools. Nutanix guest tools is the same, although with Nutanix, the drivers are split. So you have a VirtIO drivers package, and then you have Nutanix guest tools. We can, as part of our plan, install our Nutanix guest tools onto our VM, not a problem. Or we can do nothing, bypass all the operations. Completely up to us, however we want to play it. Credentials, obviously, if we're going to be injecting drivers into VMs, installing applications, yeah, we'll need a local admin account or an equivalent admin account within Linux. And here is our override for an individual VM prep. VM settings, obviously, I might want to set my VMs as a high priority. Maybe I've got a database that I need to bring up first, and then I need to bring up an app, and then I need to bring up a web, something like that. I can select that with my priorities here. So yeah, I mean, if I was moving an application at once, or maybe I'm just moving all my database servers at once, and I don't really mind which order they come up, as long as they all come up. Time zone, yeah, obviously we need to make sure we're in the right time zone. Maybe we're moving our VMs slightly further afield. Retaining MAC addresses is always a good idea. Back in the days of old, licensing was potentially tied to MAC addresses of VMs, but yeah, we can retain our MAC addresses. We can choose whether to skip adding a CD-ROM. Maybe we've got, certainly within Windows VMs, our drives are all mixed up. We've got a CD-ROM stuck in the middle there somewhere. We can skip adding a CD-ROM and just add it manually later. We can also enable memory overcommit. So with Nutanix, as opposed to VMware, when memory overcommit is turned on for all your VMs, with Nutanix, memory overcommit is selectable. It's normally off by default. If we wanted to enable memory overcommit to install that balloon driver to claw back some memory, yeah, we can enable it there. VM migration type. So yeah, maybe we want to configure our VM up front. Our Nutanix VM, we want to say, right, my source VM is never going to change. I'm not going to be adding any more disks, no processors during the lifetime of the migration. Excellent. We'll configure the target VM properties up front. Maybe we're thinking about and it's a file server running out of space. Okay, so in that instance, we would retain the source VM properties here and choose to update our target VM based on the configuration of our VM at the time of cutover. And again, we can override all of this. If we were doing 100 VMs, we can override any of these settings. And finally, we can schedule our data seeding. So as I say, if you remember, the seeding, if you like, is the backup of the VM, using all the change block tracking, all of that good stuff going on at VMware level. Maybe we want to schedule that data seeding to maybe run overnight. Absolutely not a problem. We can schedule it in here using this option. Finally, right, okay, excellent. So our migration plan has been configured. It's off and running. We're off to the races. We can see here that our one VM's in progress. Everything's running. Everything's looking good. Literally, our data seeding is kicked off, and everything's ready to start seeding that data across to our Nutanix environment. Once that seeding is complete, we can see that we've migrated, in this instance, 10 gig for our 2022 server, and it's ready to cut over. And we can see here there's an estimated cutover time for around about a minute. So to cut that service over, literally hit the cutover button, and away we go. So what happens when we cut over? What happens when we click that button? So step one, yeah, shut down the vSphere VM. Step two, we take that final vSphere snapshot. Any changes that attract, any change blocks, we start replicating those back over to Nutanix. Step three, we add a note in the vSphere notes to say this VM has been migrated using this plan on this date by this migration appliance. Step four, we virtually unplug our VM kernel, VMX NICs, or E100s within our VMware VM. So should we spin that VM up in the future, it's not connected to the network. It's not going to cause us any issues. Step five, our VM is created on our Nutanix cluster. Things are starting to come back to life on Nutanix. Step six, we attach our replicated disks to our VM. Step seven, we power the VM on. If we selected that within our migration plan, maybe we just want to migrate it and leave it switched off. If not, we'll power it on. And finally, step eight is where we reset or configure our static IP address and where we uninstall our VM tools and where we install our Nutanix guest tools. So quite a nice little process. And all of that, as I say, happens in less than 5 minutes, typically, less than 2 minutes, typically. Files migration support. So Move will also allow us to migrate file shares. It's quite a nice little feature. So any SMB file shares, CIFS 2 or above, and NFS 3 file shares, we can point our Nutanix Move appliance at those. We can only target Nutanix files VMs, so that will be the Nutanix, if you like, the Nutanix file server VM as a target. We can't use the Move functionality to shift file shares from one Windows server to another Windows server. No, unfortunately not. Yeah, the way the files share migration is configured is the file share or files VM. Come on, Chris. Files VM will pull the data from the source itself and populate our file shares that way. We can sync or mirror our replication of shares depending on whether we're doing, what we're doing a replacement or whether we're augmenting our file shares. Yeah, and as you would expect, it maintains ACLs. And again, yeah, we can use the CLI API or migrate everything through the Move appliance, handle everything, all the migration through the Move appliance, not a problem. Overview of the files orchestration with Move. Yeah, again, as I say, source can be wherever we like. We could have our SMB or CIFS share or an NFS share hosted anywhere. Configure it within Move, allow Move to orchestrate that Move and pop our files, everything up onto our Nutanix file share VMs, not a problem. Migration considerations and best practices. Networking, obviously it's networking, it's the Cisco call. We've got talking networking a little bit. Obviously, access to our cloud services, whether we've got any load balancers in the way, we need to be aware of that. We need to make sure we're not getting locked in with maybe our networking services into our clouds. Absolutely, absolutely. Cloud connectivity, VPNs. Obviously, we don't want to be flooding VPN lines. Whether we can do a direct connect, whether we're using express route, whether we're going multi-region, tenancy configurations we need to understand. BCDR, business continuity disaster recovery. How are we going to back up our VMs once we get into the Nutanix world? Does our backup appliance, Rubrik, Cohesity, whatever, does that support Nutanix backup? Nutanix as a source for backing up VMs. Application access, yeah, dead obvious. Networking and failover tolerance. Nutanix has got a disaster recovery tool built in. It's called Nutanix Disaster Recovery. Absolutely, whether we want to leverage that, whether we want to do some automated failover, etc. and obviously our bandwidth, which we can come on to here. So how long does a migration take? Like everything, it depends. It depends. It really depends on your environment. As I say, that data seeding that we're kicking off here, sure, 285 minutes, but during that 285 minutes of data seeding, our vSphere VM was up and running. It was providing service to our users. Away we go. The real standout item here is our cutover. So that is, if you like, our outage on our VMs. Cutting them over less than 5 minutes. And as it says there, all the figures are estimations. It depends. It depends how long it takes. Best practices for successful migrations. Yeah, as we said before, group your VMs into migration packages. So maybe we're going to do a bunch of rehosting. Maybe we're going to do a bunch of VMs that belong to this application, this service, however we want to do it. We can have up to a maximum of 100 VMs per migration plan. So that's, if you like, 100 VMs migrating over a weekend, or per migration plan. So that's 100 VMs that we're going to spin up into Nutanix at once, or depending on whether we're using that automation for bringing VMs up in a particular order. Optimize the schedule. Yeah, pre-seed all of your data in advance of the cutover. Makes sense, doesn't it? Everything's up and running in vSphere. Effectively, we're using Move to take another backup of our VMs. We take backups of VMs every day, potentially. Yeah, seed the data in advance of the cutover. Cutover should really be within a week of the initial seeding of the data. And as it says there, elongated seeding windows can occur additional disk usage on the source. So that's our snapshots going on at our source and being replicated into Nutanix. Guest OS prep, 2 reasons why VM preparation fails. So remember, we had the automatic preparation. It could fail. Why will it fail? UAC, good old Windows UAC and WinRM. Remember, we're injecting a driver into the VM at this point as part of the migration. We're installing an application, so potentially, our rights inside our VMs need to be administrator, if we can have it. Use the automatic preparation, as we said before, but we can switch to the manual prep should we need to. Maybe we've got a VM that just will not prep. It will not install those VirtIO drivers for whatever reason. Yeah, use the Move appliance. Put teeth in. Use the Move appliance to generate us our piece of PowerShell, our piece of Bash script to install our VirtIO drivers. Database server migrations. Remember, we're lifting and shifting a VM here, so we're doing a like-for-like migration. Database migrations typically are good with this. Maybe you want to re-architect your database, follow maybe the best practices for Nutanix, hosting databases, hosting SQL, Oracle, whatever. We've got a big page of best practices of goes into how you should shard all your disks to get that best performance out of Nutanix. And yeah, and check any documentation for any limitations on app-centric VMs. So maybe you've got, I don't know, maybe a firewall appliance VM that is not supported by Move. So, okay, cool. Well, we need to perhaps back up our data on that application VM, deploy new, and just restore our backup of our application data, and away we go, our config data, and away we go. Finally, quick reminder, migration framework. So going back to the very beginning, we need to fully assess our current environment, discover the dependencies, understand how all our applications fit together, and integrate those findings into our strategy. Analyze the current processes and business objectives, document the data points, requirements, and the migration strategy. And I would argue, as I say, do some bench testing of your current application performance at this point as well. Just understand how things are running today. There's nothing better than having the pure raw data to say this test took this long on vSphere, and it now takes this long on Nutanix. Hopefully it's quicker on Nutanix. Planning, comprehensive planning, full migration patterns, whether we're rehosting, rehoming, refactoring, one of the R's. Align with business application owners on the migration plan. So keep the application owners involved in everything that you're doing. Absolutely. Those guys live and breathe their applications, are subject matter experts. They are able to tell us that, yeah, it's not quite working well, or yeah, it's working even better than it used to, which is what we hope. We create our end-to-end run books for our migrations. So yeah, these VMs we're going to migrate using this strategy. We're going to auto prepare them. We're going to set these IPs up, etc., etc. Get all of that documented up front. Execution on the day of migration. So we pre-seeded all our data. Everything's ready to go. Obviously, we deployed our migration tooling. We've done our change requests because we all love doing change requests. We've validated that all our prereqs are met. So, you know, our application requires DNS, SMTP, etc. Everything's all there, ready to go. Let's do it. Let's execute the migration runbook. Keep everybody in the loop as part of the program, and make sure that after we've migrated, everybody's happy and everybody's happy to sign off, and we're all happy that the application's running super fast on Nutanix. Fingers crossed. And finally, education and enablement. Surely this should be at the front, Chris. Depends how you've got your environment set up. Obviously, some environments we, you know, allow maybe our Linux admins access to our Linux VMs, maybe our application owners access to our application VMs, again via the Nutanix RBAC model. Not a problem. Those guys all need to learn how to use Nutanix. We all do. Absolutely. There is lots and lots of free training available through Nutanix University. All the online training is free. Not a problem. Again, we could potentially run custom workshops, boot camps, etc., to you know, show our application owners this is how we migrate VMs. Oh, sorry, this is how we operate VMs in the Nutanix environment. It's the same, slightly different. It's pretty much the same. Identification of any processes that need to be updated. Any continuous knowledge transfer, optimization of processes. Oh, hang on a minute, we found a way we can do this better, safer, more clever within Nutanix. Absolutely. And finally, some resources. If you want to have a look at move a little further, there's a test drive that very much like the vSphere Labs or VMware Labs. We've got it's called Nutanix Test Drive. Sign up there, drop into a pre-built lab and start moving VMs about. Not a problem. Product page is there. The documentation. There's even a VMware white paper that is up on the Nutanix website that can be downloaded and gone through. Absolutely not a problem. Some FAQs, some documentation. The download link there is for Move if you've got a Nutanix access. There's some story lane walkthroughs as well, which is quite handy. Again, it's sort of more of a guided, right, click here, click here, click. Those of you are familiar with story lane, yeah, absolutely. There's even a database specific story lane walkthrough should you want to go through that. Not a problem. And finally, some videos, lots and lots of videos. There's yeah, we've got even an 8-video playlist there that you can have a sit down, put your feet up, and have a watch of some move migrations going on, some VMs coming across into Nutanix. Not a problem. Not a problem. And that's me done. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Cool.
Great, thank you, Chris. Very comprehensive overview. For some of you thinking about where you might want to go next with this, I have just posted into the chat box a link to a test drive that we run, which is a one-day workshop for you to attend. It's free to attend. It's a virtual workshop, so you don't need to travel anywhere, no expense required. It's where we go into a lot more detail on the back of what Chris covered today. There's plenty of chances to get your hands on the labs as well, to walk through some of the scenarios around application migration and some of the AI ops piece as well. So please feel free to click on that link and to sign up and to register for your place. There are limited places because obviously with the labs piece, so it's on a first come first serve basis. So I would encourage you. We can normally handle about 30 to 40 people in that session. So yeah, please be one of the first to get in there if you can. Just looking at the Q&A, there hasn't been any Q&A. Of course, if you need to, I'm sure you know who your Nutanix representatives are and who your Cisco people are. Please reach out to us in the field if you have any questions or opportunities you need some support with, and we'll be only too delighted to help. Thank you for joining us. My thanks to Chris, Ian, Arno and Sergio for supporting the webinar today, and just to wish you all a great day and see you next time. Thank you.
Cheers.